Right. Welcome everybody. Happy Tuesday or Wednesday or Thursday, whatever day you're watching this video. It's Tuesday for me as I sit here and record this, so let's go ahead and get started. We left off talking about Egypt. From Egypt, we're going to get a new religion that's going to emerge. We're going to talk about the Jewish faith today. We're going to talk about Israel and how it gets started. We're going to talk about what ends up happening with those Israelites as they begin to be conquered and everything else. So before we can really get into talking about who the Jewish people are, we got to know where they came from. Where they originated from, who they were originally, were from Mesopotamia. We know that is that land in Iraq between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. Unlike the people in Mesopotamia, they were not farmers. They were nomads. They took their sheep and they took their cattle, their flocks, their herds, and they moved all throughout Mesopotamia, and they did this for a very long time. However, what we know as Mesopotamia, once you get too far away from those rivers, you're in the middle of the desert. So they wandered around for a long time. However, that wandering led them to a pretty dry place. They needed to find some water. They needed to find it fast. Where they found it was the Nile River, which is great. Nile, we know, is a great source of water. However, as you move northward up the Nile, through Upper Egypt and into Lower Egypt, you're eventually going to run into the Egyptians, at which time the Jewish people, the people that were nomadic and wandering around, were taken as slaves. They're held as slaves hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years. We talked about a little bit with most of my classes, that tradition of Zoroastrianism they brought with them from Mesopotamia, from even beyond that into what's going to be called Persia. When they bring that into captivity with them, what slowly starts to develop is this idea of monotheistic religion, belief in one God. That one God is going to be there to save them. All right. When they get out of captivity, they're led out by Moses. Excuse me. They're led out of captivity by Moses. It all looks like it's going to be good. Where they go? They cross the Red Sea. The story goes that Moses is part of that thing, and they're able to journey across it, and they're going to walk, and they're going to go back to the Promised Land. That Promised Land they're talking about is Canaan. If you know that from the Bible or from whatever religious text you might use, Canaan was where they originally went. After they left Mesopotamia, they went to Canaan for a while until that all dried up. Canaan, we now know of today, is like this land to right at the very bottom of modern-day Syria, a little bit into Saudi Arabia, or what's now in present-day Israel. That is Canaan. So when they escaped that captivity in Egypt, they walked around Syria for several years. And the Torah, the Old Testament, says like 40 years, before eventually returning back to Canaan. Now, in Canaan, all is good. All right. In fact, they start to thrive a little bit. This is all taking place just a little over 3,000 years ago, roughly 1200 to 1000 BC. About 30 years after that, Israel is going to go through the greatest period of growth. They're going to have a king by the name of King Solomon. King Solomon is going to come on the scene, and he's going to lead Israel and lead Judaism to some of its best heights. He's going to establish trade. He's going to establish food production in there. So not only going to be gaining in power, they're also going to be gaining in wealth as well, which is all good. King Solomon is going to rule in Israel for 40 years. During that 40-year stretch, I think he's probably known for is building the largest temple in Israel. That temple that still stands today, if you were to go to Jerusalem, was built by King Solomon just under 3,000 years ago. So, I mean, it's a pretty remarkable feat of architecture and a pretty remarkable thing for the Jewish people. He built that as a temple, as a symbol of their entire religion. He said this symbol will represent all of Judaism all over the place. So what happens to these people? So they live in Canaan, they live in Israel for hundreds and hundreds of years. And as the kingdom grew, so too did the population. So eventually it split. Up in the north part of the kingdom, you have basically just Israel, just plain old regular Israel. Down to the southern part of it, you have Judah, or Judea. It looks like Judah, J-U-D-A-H, I think it is. We're going to call it Judea. Both of those kingdoms are actually going to be swallowed up. They're going to be conquering all over the place. You're going to have large empires going on. The Babylonians are probably going to be the biggest one, the Persian Empire as well. And through probably the next, maybe 500 years or so, they are going to be conquered several times by larger empires. The people that were in the north, the old Israelites or whatever, they're gone. They're going to be completely wiped out, completely destroyed, either immersed into their conquering civilizations or all killed. In Judea, in the south, Those people, however, are going to survive. They're going to kind of set up their own, I'm going to say nation, but it's not really a nation, but they are going to kind of stay in one spot. That spot they're going to stay in is the modern day city of Jerusalem. From there, they're actually going to start off the Jewish faith. They're going to start building it out from there. Main concepts, main things you need to know about the Jewish faith. First of all, it is monotheistic. All right, monotheistic we know is a belief in only one God. That came from the concepts of Zoroastrianism out in Persia. It's now reestablished and resolidified in Judaism. All right, so the idea that they are indeed one God. Now, who is that one God and what does he do? That one God they claim is the creator of everything. The entire world, the earth, the sun, the stars, the moon, the trees, the rocks, the plants, everything was all from that one God. But unlike every other religion at the time, what they are going to claim is that one God built all that stuff, and it was like, there you go, have it. Where every other religion at the time is, yeah, one God built all that stuff, then he put a whole bunch of other gods like in charge of managing it. The Jews say, no, that doesn't happen. That God is a creator of nature, but he's not in nature. He's not something to be worshipped. You can appreciate the beauty of the stuff he created, but you can't worship that beauty, if that makes sense at all. The other thing that's going to really set the Jews apart from every other religion that's out there at the time is its accessibility. The Jews were really the first ones to write down the religious text. In the Torah, they write down the ways in which God communicates with people through things called prophets. They also write down 10 commandments. Those commandments, according to God, said, if you follow these 10 rules for living, then you're good. You're in my good graces, and everything will be fine. However, if you break those rules, if you go against those commandments, now all of a sudden we got a problem, and that problem is going to lead to you being punished. A lot of what we think we know about the old text, the Old Testament, the Torah, all that stuff, think flood, think plague, think all that kind of stuff, comes from two sources. One, it comes from this idea that God punishes people for being bad or doing bad things. The other source is an epic called the Epic of Gilgamesh, which we're going to read a little bit more about in the reading and the research areas today. But a lot of good stories, a lot of different ideas from those stories, but really one major concept. And the concept is God is good as long as you're good to God. As long as you are kind of one with him and willing to worship him and trust him, he's going to be cool with you and he's going to be kind of doing what you want him to do. He's not going to be thinking bad about you or anything like that. That's actually about it for us. We need to know about coming out of Israel and out of the Jewish religion, Jewish faith, is that the Jews are going to emerge as one of the biggest religions in the entire world. It's growing all throughout Asia. It's going to grow throughout the Middle East, a little bit of North Africa, a little bit of Europe. Everybody's going to get involved in this Jewish faith and kind of jump on board. The biggest selling factor was its accessibility. Before, only priests and religious figures, pharaohs, people like that, had access to the gods. So if a pharaoh says, all right, well, I was just talking to the sun god, and he wants me to enslave all these people over here, people will be like, well, the pharaoh talked to God, so it must be true. With the Jews, it wasn't like that. With the Jews, it was everybody has access to God, therefore everybody can interpret religion the way they want to. There are priests and rabbis who are going to kind of help out, but for the most part, everybody's able to make their own decisions about religion and about God. So that's the big deal. That's the big difference in the two, and that's the thing that's going to drive Judaism forward until they're completely conquered by the empires we're going to talk about next class. So hopefully you guys got something out of this. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Remember, take your notes that are down there at the bottom of the screen, combine it with the research and the reading and the writing and the talking and everything else along the way, and hopefully you're going to get some good knowledge out of this. So I will see you guys next time.